Yeah, could I just drop them right in the middle there, just to kick off with. Right guys, so just to finish off my review of the Stanley tool belt then, I've just got it here on display on my workbench along with an array of tools, bits and bobs, just to give you an idea as to what you can actually fit in this tool belt. So first things first then, most of us have a tape, and this pocket is absolutely ideal for putting a tape in there. However, if you didn't want to put a tape in there and you had other ideas, you could just put a load of screws or something in there. I mean look, these are 100mm turbo gold screws. There's about 20 or 30 there, and you could fit a stack of those in there. So if you're any sort of screwing, then you know, you could use that. If you've already done your measuring out and you don't need your tape with you at that time, that little pouch there, look, you could put loads of these screws in here and they will be easily accessible. And obviously it doesn't matter what sort of screw. I've got a load of plasterboard screws here. Look, you can get absolutely dozens and dozens in there. So primarily though, this pocket here is for putting in a tape. Now, one of the things which I always have with me, I always have a notebook. You can put your measurements, make notes in there, look, draw yourself some little pretty pictures. I always have this with me, and I find that it slips in one of these pockets very nicely indeed. Now what you will find is the fact that these pockets here, look, you have double pockets, one at the front, one at the back. Now, you know, the ones at the back, they're a nice size actually, but they're only really ever so usable for thin items. If you've got a bit of stuff in here, okay, you've only got a certain amount of space obviously, so you've got to be mindful of what you're putting in there. But I always have a notebook with me, and it normally sits in one of these pockets here, or indeed this one here, look, it's just a duplicate of the one we have here. I always have a couple of marker pens and 2 or 3 pencils, and I find that they sit very nicely in the end here. In fact, that's where I always tend to put them, okay. And you know, you can get 2, 3, 4 pencils in there. They're always readily available. So what else can you put in here then? Well, we have a number of options. This pocket here, look, you could say for example put one of these little knives in here. That would go in there quite nicely. You could say for example put a 6-inch spanner in there. That would fit in there a piece of cake, and that's not going to fall out either. You could put a pair of pliers in there. Bang one of those in there, look, that would hold those very nicely indeed. If for example you had a multi-tool, then that would fit in there perfectly. Okay, well you might need to fiddle around a bit just to get it out. But anyway, look, so this pocket here, you know, you can fit a load of stuff in there. And there also, for example, you can put other bits and bobs in there. So for example, if you had a scraper, that could go there, but that's probably not such a good idea, is it? Given the fact that you've got a sharp blade. However, if you turn it around, it will go in that pocket, piece of cake. Now, this larger pocket here, to my mind, this is perfect for, you know, banging in screws, that sort of thing. You know, you might have some smaller ones with you. You can just, say, stick one of those in there. You can just literally grab a load of screws, which might be loose. These are 75mm plasterboard screws. So you could just grab a handful of them, look. Just stick them in there. And they'll sit in there absolutely perfectly. Now, the pocket's over here. So what I sometimes do, I get this square and stick it in the pocket there, because I do use this very regularly. Pocket isn't probably as large as it'd need to be to accommodate this, but the fact is you can do it if necessary, and I do this on a regular basis. In addition to that, I also tend to use the big pockets here. You can put these larger screws in here so they're easier to access. You could put them in there. You could have a load of nails and just stick them, so for example in this pocket here. So you've got screws, you've got some nails. How are you going to fit them into place? Well, you've got options, haven't you? Now, these little tabs here, look, clearly you can go straight through with these, look, boom. So you have a number of options. You can put screwdrivers in there. Obviously from a safety point of view, you need to make sure that it's appropriate to do it and they're actually going to sit in there tightly. If you're an electrician, or indeed if you're not, there you go, look, you can fit a couple of screwdrivers in there. So we've also got quite a handful of nails in there. This little steel ring piece, excuse expression, that's for putting a hammer in, resting a hammer. Now the thing about this which I like is the fact that some of these tool belts, especially the cheaper ones, in fact I have seen some more expensive ones actually, these here, the actual ring, the actual steel insert, they're actually made of plastic, but they're covered in a sort of a plastic coating which makes it look metallic, whereas the reality is it isn't. So you could, I mean I frequently use this to put a hammer in, but depending on what you're doing at the time, it might be the case that you have an axe with you. So for example, if you're up a tree and you might need to take that with you, well guess what, that'll fit in there as well, look. Now you've obviously got to be a little bit careful, but the fact is, will it go in there? Yes it will. Now we have a Stanley knife. Now what I've done in the past with this, the Stanley knife, because it's always very useful to have it with you, I frequently, you've got to be careful because you don't want to cut this sort of webbing, but if you've got the blade open and if it's not retractable, you can just very carefully slot it in there, look. So the handle fits in there nicely, the blade hangs down there, and you can then have a screwdriver and your Stanley knife, which I always need with me, and perhaps for example put your hammer in there. Now for those of you who like wearing these thin lightweight gloves, I mean these here, look, you pick them up for about £1.40, £1.50 from Screwfix. Well guess what, if you were to get rid of the contents of say this pocket here, then if you had a pair of gloves you just wanted to be able to put to one side, then you could basically roll these up and just stick them in there, look. So you've also got yourself a spare pair of gloves, which may well come in handy. I mean, it might be the case that you've got all the screws and all nails you need in there, and you also need to free this one up here, look. So what we'll do, look, let's get these nails out of here. As you can see, you can get into these pockets, providing that you don't absolutely pack them. Now one thing I will mention about these pockets is the fact that they are fitted into place. They aren't adjustable, but to be fair, you can't have everything. I mean, this tool belt costs £13, so you've got to be reasonable about what your expectations are. So if for example you have a pair of safety glasses, you want to take them with you, well guess what, you can put a pair of safety glasses in there as well. So I think the reality is that you can get a fair bit of stuff in here. So what else have we got then? Let's just track back and find out what we've got. If you have one of those, that will also go in there, or you can put it in there. You can put some spare blades in there as well, look, just bang them in there. You can have a scraper with you, do you know what, that will go in there as well. If you need an adjustable spanner, well guess what, that'll go in there. Let's put it around the other way. So the whole point of doing this is just to illustrate the fact that it is possible to put quite a bit of stuff in here. It's also important, and I would reiterate the fact that this tool belt only costs £13, so it's not going to be as heavy duty as some, so your expectations have got to be reasonable about what you're going to use it for. If for example you have a pair of spare glasses like I do, these ones here, look, I always use them. They've got very thick plastic lenses, and it's really good just to be able to sort of like hang them on the side, and you can do that anywhere, look, you can bang them anywhere. For example, just over here is quite handy. So yeah, I mean, there we go, look, very versatile, very useful. For £13 you can't go wrong. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that this is a bargain. So the actual belt itself has a lot of adjustment. Take this out, look. The belt has a lot of adjustment. It's also padded on the areas, well, I mean, we talk about it being padded, I mean it is, but I think one of the things that gives rise to the padding is the fact that it's sort of looped over. So this belt then, I think is actually very good for what you pay for it. So at its minimum setting then, so if you were to really cinch this back as far as it will go, then I reckon it will fit a 30-inch waist. I mean, look, you can pull the damn thing back and adjust it. So at its smallest setting, I think you could easily, somebody with a 30-inch waist could wear that. But the good thing about it is as well, I mean, this is adjusted for me, look, okay? So I have a 38-inch waist. There is a significant more amount of adjustment. So on there, look, you've got about another 10 inches. So I reckon you could definitely get, and this would be comfortable to wear for a much larger person with a waist of up to sort of, you know, 48, 50 inches. There is a lot of adjustment there. The buckle, I think, is actually quite strong. I mean, you look at some of the reviews and people are whining and moaning about stuff, but what on earth do they expect for £13? So the belt is adjustable, the belt is comfortable, the actual tool belt itself is comfortable to wear, once again providing you don't overload it and you don't overestimate quality of the item really and its durability. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an idea as to what you can put in there, and we've got a right stack of stuff in there, haven't we? We've got a bit of everything really, and this can be worn comfortably. So just to summarise, to conclude then, this, I believe, is an absolutely fantastic tool belt. I think it represents excellent value for money, perfect for DIYers, handymen. I think the other thing I would say actually is the fact that this is quite light, and because it has such a good range of adjustment on the waist, this would also be perfect for male or female. It doesn't matter what the sex is, the fact is this will be suitable for either. If, for example, you've got a young person doing an apprenticeship, or they're like dabbling in DIY, or you're trying to sort of train them up in certain skills, this would be perfect. If, for example, you had a more expensive belt and you've had it for a few years and it's given up the ghost, then this may be a suitable, appropriate measure, you know, just as an interim thing really, until you get perhaps a more expensive, better quality one if you're in the trades. So anyway, I'm not going to do any more gabbing. I'll let you reflect on what I've said, and thank you very much indeed for watching.